for you, how much, and you talk about challenges, how much does your background as a prosecutor and attorney general, how much do you think that has contributed to the fact that some African Americans, they feel skeptical about you?
You know, I think that there has been a lot of misinformation about my background, and so there's a lot of work that I need to do to just correct the record and be very clear. Look, I was born a daughter of parents who were met and were active in the civil rights movement. I was born into a family and a community and a neighborhood where, from the time I could first remember, I was acutely aware of the injustices in the criminal justice system. There is not a black man I know, be he a relative, a friend, or a colleague, who has not been the subject of some form of discrimination or profiling. I mean, my experience with racism is a very real experience that I've had since the day I was born. So when I made a decision after going to Howard and coming back and going to law school, when I made the decision to become a prosecutor, it was a very conscious decision. And I made it with a specific goal of knowing the power you can have to reform systems, not only from the outside, but also from the inside. And that's why, when I was elected DA, I was one of the first in the nation as a prosecutor to start a reentry initiative focused on drug dealers, low-level drug dealers, and getting them jobs and counseling and support, knowing that so many of them took that road because that was the only economic opportunity they thought they had. I was one of the first in the nation to work on what we needed to do around young women who were being arrested as teenage prostitutes, when in fact their background was such that they had been, neglected, they had been so badly treated that they needed to have a safe house instead of being sent to juvenile hall. My background is that as Attorney General, I was one of the first, I think the first as a state, to require my agents to wear body cameras. As United States Senator, I've been a leader in our country on saying we need to reform the money bail system in America, because it is not only a criminal justice issue, it's an economic justice issue, which is that people are sitting in jail in America every day simply because they don't have the money to afford bail, versus the people who have that money in their back pocket are out enjoying their lives with their families. So there's a lot that I need to do to help people understand not only the work I've done, but also to not buy into this idea that that we don't also want that we're going to have safe communities and fight for that. Because I think there's also some that would try and perpetuate a myth that suggests that we don't want to have safe communities. I am never going to apologize for prosecuting somebody who raped a woman or molested a child. I'm never going to apologize for that either. And but there's work to be done. But I think that some of our opponents are actually trying to make what would otherwise be considered a strength into a weakness, and there is that manipulation that's happening as well.
What policies would you say, or you just highlight a couple that you feel like you've evolved on? I know one that's come up a lot is the truancy policy that you took a very tough stand on as a prosecutor, where parents could be charged with a misdemeanor if their child, I think, missed 10% of the school year.
So let me talk about that. Mm-hmm. So when I was DA, I saw the extraordinarily high number of young black men who were under the age of 25 who were being killed. And people just accepted that would be the case. And so whenever there was a rash of homicides, people, let's do more gang enforcement, let's put more police on the street. And I said, wait a minute. Let's do a study. Who are the homicide victims who are under the age of 25 when they were killed? And the data came back to me that included 94% were high school dropouts. So then I went over to the school district. What's going on? And I learned of the chronically and habitually truant students, 40% were elementary school students, missing 50, 60, up to 80 days of a 180-day school year. I learned that an elementary school truant is 3 to 4 times more likely to be a high school dropout, that at that time, 80% of the prisoners in the United States were high school dropouts, that a black man, if he is between the age of 30 and 34 and a high school dropout, is 2/3 likely to be in jail, have been in jail, or dead. And here's the thing. This was happening in my city, and nobody was raising the alarms about it. If it had been those kids in the rich side of town, you can best believe they would have shut down the system to address why the system was not serving those children. So when I took on this issue of elementary school truancy, it was to hold the system accountable, and it worked. First of all, not one parent went to jail, because that was never the intention. And secondly, we improved attendance by over 30%. Because we held the system accountable to say, hey, you need to support these parents to get their children to school every day. Hey, these parents need to be informed about what is available to help and support them. It was stories like I learned because we were asking the question in a way nobody was. Because the expectations for these children were so low. Instead of understanding the capacity of these babies. And by the way, I'm talking about the system. The system's expectation of these kids were so low. I remember one case, people ended up asking a question and learned that there was a mother who was raising 3 children by herself, homeless, holding down 2 jobs. Well, of course her children weren't going to school every day. But who had done what to concern themselves with that child not being in class? And it gets back, frankly, to another issue. And again, it's about what we're doing in terms of public education. That teacher is already saddled with over 40 children. And so it's like smart Jemele is in the front row raising her hand every day. Well, they may not be concerned with little Johnny, who usually sits in the back of the class and half the time isn't there, because they just don't have the bandwidth to figure out why he's not in school today. But the system has to be more accountable to our children. And that's why I created that initiative.